the fuck out. Rich squad motherfuckers roll out. Keep your peaks up so all the globies can see we're in a motherfucking cold and prison 33rd degree. What the fuck is wrong with society? And why am I such an anomaly? Everybody lives in idiocracy. Force fed these deceptive theories exploiting the innocent youth. Why do we believe these lies that are presented to us as truth?
Okay, we are live 3/23/2025, and the topic tonight is the inevitable cyber pandemic. And I just came across this clip from Candace Owens, and there's a half truth in here. She's describing an incoming agenda which can be predicted on the same basis that you could have predicted the C-19. And in this instance, she's describing what is going to be a cyber pandemic, which will necessitate the lockdown of the internet. And if you've been listening to Infinite Plane Radio since 2022, I started this conversation before Musk acquired Twitter. But what I've said is that the acquisition of Twitter and changing it to X is really about Twitter being the vector for disease X, the mind virus. The WHO talked about the big one that would shut us down, disease X, and I said it's not going to be a virus, it's going to be a cyber pandemic. And that seems to be on the agenda. And last year, top movie on Amazon was Canary Black, so I watched it on that basis because I watch anything that's number one. And it was about a, quote, cyber nuke. Launched by an evil character who looked exactly like Putin. So we're getting back into this territory, but let me play this clip. This is Candace Owens talking about how the WHO is running drills on the power grid going down.
If they brought the power grid down. And by they, I mean if the government purposefully brought the power grid down. And I'm not asking that question for fun. I'm asking that question because the World Economic Forum is predicting that a cyber pandemic, you can look this up, they've been running exercises about it this year, is inevitable. You're probably saying, what is a cyber pandemic? It doesn't make any sense. Like, what are we even talking about? Well, first and foremost, the reason I'm even paying attention to the World Economic Forum and their...
Now, the cyber pandemic thing is going to be likely a combination of things. It could be the infrastructure being temporarily blacked out because of an EMP, but it's also going to pertain to the ideas, the madness, as referenced in Netflix, the ideas that radicalize the far right to attack the power grid, which has been one of the repeated narratives for how the domestic violent extremists are going to go about this. It's attacking the power grid. So these are not new stories, but again, the WHO has been performing exercises for this. Exercises are really just a way of looking at another form of predictive programming, in a sense. And they're getting people used to the idea and preparing, I think, to do the real thing. And she's right on this, although her interpretation is going to be skewed in the direction of it being, well, we'll see. Let's listen to the rest of it.
Exercises is because they notoriously, in 2019, ran an exercise for a coronavirus pandemic that oddly all became true. I mean, without one slight difference, they said that the coronavirus was going to...
Now let's skip forward past this. We know how sensitive of a topic that is. But she is pointing out, but I mean, you could say the same with the movies. The movies predict the same things that the drills do. Now where she's going to get it wrong is she's going to say it predicts a real thing, a real event, a real nuke, a real EMP. And the position that I take on it is that we're looking at a simulation that will be treated as real. At no point is the drill going to become real. These exercises, of course, are commonplace. It's kind of interesting. You look at the psyops, the things that we determine to be fake by our standards, or things that are likely to be not real, and they're all attended by A, drills, and B, entertainment parallels. No coincidences. Let's listen to the rest of this.
A cyber pandemic, is going to happen, and that it is once again inevitable. So if you look into the exercise that they have run this year, I believe they ran it in July. They've been meeting and talking about the cyber pandemic and what it would look like. Essentially,
Now, do you remember they did Cyber Polygon, which was a tabletop exercise for how governments would respond to a lockdown, a shutdown, a big computer virus? Well, they canceled it, and on that day, there were major communication shutdowns. And that kind of just shows you how easily they can just make it real. It's just a matter of context.
Their idea is that they're going to have to sanitize the internet because a bug, think of it as like a coronavirus for your computer, is going to sweep globally, and the only way they're going to be able to stop this bug from infecting everything is to effectively shut down the internet, right? And they were talking about bringing down the power grid in an effort to do this. So imagine the government bringing down the power grid, and you would not have access to anything that required an electrical charge.
All right, so there you have it. Exactly as I have spelled out disease X since 2022. There's going to be a justification for shutting down the whole thing, because one infected device or one infected mind with the right mind viruses can endanger everybody. So this is, I think, about both the infrastructure and censorship. And what was 2020 about? Well, it was about the physical world, the infrastructure, how we changed to accommodate this new thing, but also the censorship. And the censorship in that case was medical misinformation. In this case, it'll be likely, I'm thinking, the specific type of radicalism, which they will blame for the actions of the domestic violent extremists. All right, let's see, joined by Greg, Ted Stryker, Frugal Snowbird, Mizelle Vertjan, Jamarian May, Immortal L, and Reverse History. Happy Sunday. Yes, thank you for joining. So let's go ahead, and something else I want to point out. In case something happens, let's say I get distracted or something happens, I would hate for all this work to turn to nothing. And that's one of the reasons why I published Auto Hoaxology 101. I said we need to take our best ideas from the think tank and codify it and put it into a structure, a philosophic framework with which to approach media. At large, knowing what we do, being aware as we are about what psyops, the role psyops play in worldview formation, and even the idea that what the media has presented us is a model, and looking at it as such is kind of groundbreaking. And I thought, let's go ahead and put this all into a book. So the book's out there, but there isn't much I can do for people who are completely new to onboard, to get them all the right concepts rapidly. And I think the book might be a little too jargon laden, and it might presuppose a little too much on behalf of the reader. So what I thought was, let me put it into a video form, not an audiobook, but let me break it down with a course. So I put it together as Exit Trutherville, a crash course in auto hoaxology. So this is really targeted not at normies who are comfortably asleep, but this is for the truthers, the ones who are existing in the nightmare realm of Trutherville, which is a subset of mainstream, where they recognize the big lies, they recognize psyops, but they haven't put it all together, and they're still under a couple of, misunderstandings about the events. These are the confused types who think that Trump might have faked his event, but the guy died, or there was a second shooter, the people who are still drinking the Kool-Aid at Alex Jonestown, and this is reaching out to them. Those who haven't figured out what predictive programming is, or who still think a simulation is responsible, well, they haven't figured out the immensity of the psy-war, the integration of entertainment and news, and how it all relates. So this is a crash course, clear-cutting the force of misinformation. It includes a video, which is an hour and 11 minutes, the Auto Hoaxology 101 PDF, World Stage Deprogramming Guide, and several graphic illustrations. And in this, I have the lexicon. We discuss the main concepts about active versus passive media consumption, MSM plus, MSM minus, Anyway, this is now available, and if you're a member here, Blue Wrench Lodge, you probably have the video you can watch. If you subscribed to the Substack, it's going to be released to you, I think at like midnight or something, it'll show up. So it's out there, and the reason I did this again is so that if someone wants to know where you're coming from, or we just want to give someone the TLDR, this is it. Exit, truth, or veil. This should be your starting point. I point out the fallacy of false flag theory and applying that to any event and why that's wrong-headed and leads in the wrong direction. Okay, let's see. Reverse History says, I just watched the beginning of a 2013 Japanese live action of a 70s cartoon called Gotcha Man. Virus X destroys most of human civilization. Interesting. What's up, Pippi Langstruff, Immortal L? Yeah, now the course is worth the money, in my opinion. I put it up for 10. And this includes the video and then the books, the PDFs. Additionally, the graphics that I think are useful as far as showing the box of the programmed, the deprogrammed, the programmers, the mainstream, and then the subsets, Woketown and Trutherville. I think these are all key components to what we talk about. And since I'm selling it through Gumroad, if anyone is interested, you just have to sign up at Gumroad, and you can get a link and receive a referral fee of, I think, 50% of the royalty if somebody purchases from your link. So if you want to advertise or share or promote this, I do have an affiliate program set up, and I have clips that go along with it. Okay, moving on. Again, you'll get this in your inbox, and if it looks like something you want to promote, the links are there. I updated the main website, infiniteplainsociety.com. You can see it on the screen here, the IPS DEPROGRAM. I have a link to live audio, live video, and the Exit Truth or Veil course, the latest archive. I'm setting it up here with, of course, the AutoHoax Wiki, the Insider Tabloid. Everything that we're doing is really being consolidated right now, right here at infiniteplainsociety.com. It's in development. It's always been stultified because I wasn't hosting it on my own, so I wasn't able to use all of the available templates and plugins. So it was worth it for me to take a few days off and learn how to do it myself. Additionally, as many of you requested, I should reopen the shop, and I have. Somebody insinuated I was a shill because I do have a product here that Alex Jones sells. It's not one of these vitality pills, but it's a brain complex. I'm not here to even promote it, but I'm just finding suppliers for things, and I've had this idea for some time that I want to sell B12 shots, but I want to call them, adrenochrome, which might be difficult to get that label, made that way. But here, yes, I just have a variety of things, but mainly shirts, apparel, press passes, stickers. I have a shirt that says Ataraxia, and it has multiple colors. So a simple word shirt. Oh, also coffee. Infinite Plane Radio does have a Fepe edition Cascades coffee, medium dark only at this time. Now you might think it's overpriced, but if you look at the bag, on the background it just says fake in a lot of different fonts. And then you got the mascot, and on the back you have Infinite Plane Radio, some cyberpunk AI art. So yes, we have coffee as well. Also, thought-provoking horizontal posters. This is the World Stage Events perspective, which I created as a mind map, and now it's a poster. Portable outdoor Bluetooth speakers. Yeah, exactly, Ted Stryker. Tim is now a shill and a god blocker. Oh, and also, I am putting the cover of each issue of the Insider on a cell phone case, and I'm also putting the press pass on iPhone cases. And I'm not sure, maybe it's not just iPhone, but whatever the case, if you go to the main website, I'm consolidating everything you might find it interesting. But the main point here is it's a hub. You have immediate links to Discord, Gilded, Telegram, Twitter, Facebook, and Substack. And if you want to be a shill for the IPS, become an affiliate. Send me your email. I'll set you up. And of course, for every person who buys Exit Trutherville through your link, you'll get $5. And that's forever. I'm never going to change the offer. This is a completed course. It consolidates the content of World Stage Deprogramming Guide and Autohoaxology 101. And I think it's a good overview. And it goes in depth about the main things that are important to consider if you want to be a media skeptic and step outside of the program. Jamarian says, the Walmart electronics section of the conspiracy world. I've always been an advocate of e-commerce as far as financing a channel because they can censor your content, but it's far more difficult to censor a book, a t-shirt, a bumper sticker. If you get into products, it's kind of outside of their purview. And putting everything in the course like this makes it possible for the mind virus that is the IPS to spread, to proliferate. And I wanted to also do this to build a bridge, because I know I said for a period of time we had to enforce a strict quarantine. Well, quarantine's over. I was like, let's go ahead and set a quarantine up. Let's just not entertain people who are still trapped in Trutherville. But now we have a tool here to directly engage. We can directly confront and ask them, well, what is the basis for you saying that this person is really dead? Or that there's massive structures beneath the pyramids? Because there aren't any challenges within alt media to itself. And they ignore the challenges coming from mainstream because those are illegitimate. When is IPS going to sell candy bars? I'm mostly interested in, I think the adrenochrome, the energy drinks, IPS energy drink line needs to happen. Coffee's kind of the starting point, but I'm looking into other items. Maybe Kool-Aid. Sell some Kool-Aid. For some time, I wanted to do some popcorn and spell it with Q, like Q-O-R-N, and market it to QAnoners. And I would still do it, but their cult is over. Q is dead. Maybe IPS can get one of those kiosks at the airport to sell goods. I would rather have a bunch of Hare Krishna types, the bald, barefooted types walking around, handing out books, asking for donos. I purchased some I used to gravitate towards cultists. When you're looking for information, you go to Discord servers, you go to weird YouTube channels, you have to dig. And before everything was online, I did a lot of stuff in the Meatverse, and I wasn't averse to talking to cult members. If I saw Scientologists giving free stress tests at the state fair, I would sit down and take a stress test, a personality test. I think I failed mine. Yeah, Q, that's a good one, reverse history. Alex Jonestown Q-Laid. And he may not have been full-blown Q, but he was pretty much full-blown Q. I mean, he tried to distance himself, but they're all advocates for it. Nobody's talking about JFK coming back anymore. That cult's dead. And I'm wondering if it's just because it was all paid for by some shadowy group and the money ran out or something. Deprogram, I can finally support the effort. What's your preferred way to send support? Two ways. One way is the shop or super chats is always a way to support this. Or you can become an IPS affiliate and promote Exit Trutherville and receive a 50% referral fee. Which is, my idea here, of course, is that anybody who adheres to what we talk about at the basic level and is willing to promote it to enlarge the conversation has an incentive to do so. I mean, share it anyway, for sure. But like I said before, the purpose of quarantine was to give us time to consolidate the information, the ideas, that we have something of a consensus on, because we are correct. Make no mistake, we are correct, and it's okay to say that. But I think now that we're on a solid basis, solid ground, and the course, I think, illustrates this, we can go ahead and end quarantine. If you're Mandela affected, feel free to call in. Anti-vaxxers, you're still wrong. You're still controlled opposition, but we can overlook that for the purposes of discourse. Sakine says, coffee and tea was the start of many a nation. Well, I'll begin stocking stuff here in-house. Stickers, I'm having stickers made. And I'm going to get the gold sticker with the 33 for those of you who win the pop quizzes. And as you know here, the answer to the pop quiz, whatever it is generally 33. So let me play this. We've been making a study of celebrities with Trump derangement syndrome. Like Robert De Niro was a big one, and his significance to the body of predictive programming and psyops. Same with Alec Baldwin. Well, then there's Mark Hamill from Star Wars, but Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie O'Donnell's worth mentioning here because after 7/13/2024, she said that Trump's ear healed too fast and that the shooting was, quote, hinky. She used the word hinky, and I had to look it up. I had no idea what hinky was, but it's proximal to Hinckley, as in the guy that shot Reagan. So we thought this was kind of metascripty. And then Jurassic Liars chimed in that the name, Rose and Dawn, all ties into the Donald Trump rising from the dead psyop. This is all, again, part of what his breakdown was, the significance of the names. But here she is talking about how Elon Musk stole the election. This is right out of The Madness, where they kill the CEO who financed the Nazis online, created The Madness, which was the mind virus of radicalization that caused people to get violent, and then he steals the election. So here's O'Donnell making the point that this is the first time in history when a president has won every swing state. And then she alludes to the fact that he's super close to the guy that, who, in her words, runs the internet.
A lot of people did vote for him.
Yes.
Do you accept their right to do that and their opinion of him?
Well, I respect their right to do that. I question why the first time in American history a president has won every swing state and is also best friends, and his largest donor was a man who owns and runs the internet. So I would hope that that would be investigated and that we would see whether or not it was an anomaly or something else. So
there you have it, erection talk. And this is kind of what Republicans are doing. Very interesting. And I don't think it's insignificant. These are actors on the world stage. And again, this is Rosie O'Donnell. And I remember at the time thinking it was funny that she called the Trump assassination attempt fake. Because if you remember, when he appeared at the first debate in 2015, he described Rosie O'Donnell when he was challenged by Megyn Kelly on his statement that, women are pigs. He said, only Rosie O'Donnell. So it seemed like she had something against him. Thank you, Ted Stryker. Brought in 10 blue titanium wrenches. So these are going to Ted Stryker, 5G Trevor, Jam Z, Roxy W, Jennifer Reeves, Salty Siren, Brock Till Payday, Todd Jones, David Hazel, T-Rex in Space, and Michael Jones. They've all received the blue wrench, which means that you can go watch Exit Trutherville. Yep, Donald Rose. Robert De Niro pulls anti-vax film from Tribeca 2016. Interesting. Well, one of the things we've been talking about here are predictive programming proxies, the actors that are integrating with the psyops in their real-life appearances. And I say real-life in quotes. So when Robert De Niro was out in front of the Trump courthouse making all these brash statements, it clued me in that, okay, let me look into the body of work regarding Robert De Niro, and we found all kinds of assassination attempts and related content that all pertained to what happened in July. So Rosie O'Donnell making an appearance like this is just something that I'm taking note of. Okay, next. AI video detection software claims that the Dragon capsule ocean landing is AI generated. We kind of talked about this yesterday, but it got me thinking, just like we're retro auto-hoaxing the news, and we're going back, we're using AI, and we're putting the connections into an alternate wiki in this parallel media, I think we should, in the same way, approach a lot of old video content from the space agencies and run it through AI video detection software and see if it comes up. Just, is this, see if the system inadvertently exposes itself. Because I can already find evidences of guardrails where they've included selective skepticism and the fallacious reasoning of treating the screen as authority. The Perplexity AI is a programmed MSM true believer. That's its frame of reference. But it seems like they're trying to steer these things in a certain way to control narratives. But can they control the video content it's analyzing in the same way? I'm not sure if they can. This video came out that showed the astronauts coming back to Earth, suggesting that they dyed their hair in space. It was later debunked. I have noticed before, by looking at other astronauts, specifically I think it was Peg Whitson, the one who was in space for 666 days, and there was Botox. There were suggestions there of hair dye, etc. Like, yeah, it's a thing. But this one was not correct. It was actually viral and then debunked. And I look at these big channels that promote these bad leads, and I think these are all shills, basically. I don't trust any anonymous channels. Truth or bait is what we call it. The NBA is fake and rigged. This is pretty good. I found a video on Twitter, and I thought I recognized the voice. It's actually Flat Earth Orifice talking about how the NBA is rigged using magnetic rims and balls. And I'm not sure if I buy this. So the NBA is fake and rigged as the NFL. They're using magnets and balls and the rim to control whether or not shots go in. So this is an 11-minute video. It's rather good.
Magnetic balls and magnetic rims to manipulate and control the outcome of its games. Imagine with the press of a button or a flip of a switch, you could control whether any player makes any shot or whether any player misses any shot. That's exactly the technology that is in place in the NBA today. It ain't magic, it's magnets.
Now, I have seen instances of people using footballs that have some kind of metal strip in it. They have magnetic gloves. I've seen a lot of things like this. So this wouldn't shock me if the technology exists. I don't know how extensive it is, but he makes some points about how all the players are in on it, which they would have to be. And I think this has been given away many times with like DeMar Hamlin's event on the field, passing out, dying. They bring him back. The ambulance looks like a U-Haul. Like the whole thing was just so fake. But everyone has to be in on it. All these NBA nothing but actors. I mean, I realize they're real athletes, but it seems to me that this isn't that far-fetched. I'll play a few more seconds of it if you haven't seen this.
They're about making their big fat paycheck, and they make a big fat paycheck to keep their mouth closed about the inner workings of the business and the fact that it's rigged and scripted. The smoking gun proof that the NBA is indeed using magnetic balls and magnetic rims is the fact that all these balls keep getting stuck on the rim. Some of them look so completely unnatural. They look so manipulated that you could go out in your driveway and shoot hoops 1,000,000 times every single day, and you will never get one to stick to the rim the way some of these shots in the NBA are sticking.
And you would think that the company making the rims for the NBA would design rims that don't allow for the ball to get stuck up there, which is very problematic. And I'm thinking he might be onto something here. I'm thinking that this is probably true. And it just seems like another, like Jamarian says, goes along with how scripted and fake everything is. Well, look, they fake moon landings. You think they're not going to fake the sports? I mean, at a minimum, you have to recognize the use of sports as a propaganda vector, which is how we often discuss it. But as far as the riggability of games, the fakeability of it, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, none of this stuff would shock me. Here's the one that the NFL uses magnetic gloves. I've seen these. Although I saw a video with Stephen Curry, and he had a shelf full of basketballs, and he was throwing them full court, one after another, and hitting every time. I don't necessarily think that it's unachievable. Like, I don't think he was using magnets in that instance. So I don't know. I don't know the extent, but yeah, it's certainly fake and rigged, no doubt. Joined by Elford, says, we can't debunk from video and continuity errors alone. Some videos are completely convincing. The added info, political and psychological manipulation must not be omitted. Correct. You might not have enough information from a headline and a story to call it fake or real. That's the mistake. The mainstream mistake is that they have enough information to believe it. It's like, no, you're a low info believer. More information would take you away from believing it and put you into being a skeptic. So informed disbelief is what we should aim for, if anything. And part of the additional information is the background, the context in which the story takes place, and the political utility, which is always immediately evident and obvious. Like, oh, look, a plane hit a helicopter. It's because of female pilots and DEI. No, it's because anti-government extremist Elon Musk fired air traffic controllers. So you have these narratives that are applicable to the left or the right that both agree the thing happened, but allows them to blame the other side. Reality's not so simplistic and so easy to fit into that mold. So that's generally a good indicator of fakery. Jamarian said, I told this to a woman who's a huge fan of basketball, whether it's her playing or watching it, and she was absolutely not having it, a normie in the state of cognitive dissonance. Well, back in like the early 80s, if you said wrestling was fake, they'd body slam you. You wouldn't dare call it fake. But then they admitted it was fake, and I think this was a marketing move, a strategy, which was about, by not being classified as a real sport, they could avoid a lot of the regulation. So, in other words, they just came clean with it, that no, this is all entertainment. And I'm pretty sure that's still the case with everything. Yeah, but the auto believers are in a spell, and I'm not trying to wake them up necessarily. The only people that I'm reaching out to are the people who've left Normieville and made it to Trutherville. So this Exit Trutherville course is targeted at truthers. It wouldn't make sense to normies. We'll go after normies later. But right now, I just say let them sleep. We have to start from the outside and work our way in. And Trutherville is a subset of the mainstream. Woketown, off limits. I have no intention of doing any kind of outreach in Woketown. That's too far gone. It's the deepest level of matrix programming. And that's because it's on the side of the media. I mean, the Trutherville, they're programmed, sure. But at least they have taken a stance of being in opposition to the big liars. Speaking of liars, I was having a number of threads here on X with people who are telling me to believe in the space station, but they've never seen it. So, for example, this person who goes by the name Shadow Physicist says that he believes in the ISS, but he's never seen it. But that he says, quote, "You can just go look up for yourself." And I encountered this a lot. They say, just go outside and look, you can see it. And I'm like, why haven't you seen it? Mick Toon, who went all the way to Antarctica to see a 24-hour sun, has never seen the space station. Like, that's a problem. And I'm just noting here that a lot of people are comfortable saying that they've seen it, and then I can easily debunk them just by asking for specifics. So one guy told me that he was walking through Ireland with his son, and he saw it. And I said, when and where? And he said, I'm not going to give you my location. It was a couple weeks ago. It was west of Europe. I don't remember the time or date. It went from east to west. I don't care if you believe me. And I hear this a lot. I'm like, wait, you don't remember the time or date? You see a light in the sky, you remember that, but you don't remember the time or date. It's like, sort of like UFO abductees say. They see the UFO, but they have no memory of where they were or when. So anyway, I see this a bit. They're always vague, or they claim they don't want to give away their location. This guy said to me, just look for YouTube videos. There are many of them. Again, this is shifting the burden of proof, and you have to reject this stuff. Too many people don't reject these things. It's like, no, you haven't seen it. Stop pretending. So again, you can call them liars. You can say you're a liar with good intentions. You're virtuous. You're virtue signaling. You're trying to, I think in some way, they feel like they're fighting the cause, a good cause, I suppose. Okay, let's see here. You know what's interesting? You talk about how the normie has cognitive dissonance when you tell them that this or that is fake. Truthers also have cognitive dissonance if you tell them their version is fake. And that's why I put this course together, Exit Trutherville, because the main and alternative news are both really caught in the same spell. Okay, let's continue. We talked about the nothing burgers. Billy Corrigan is seeing reptilians, and everybody's looking beneath the pyramids. Did anybody see anything scripty about the George Foreman reported death? You know, my attitude on celebrity deaths, they die. But the timing of their deaths, the circumstances, are seemingly used as opportunities for conveying something. It's generally very useful to the PSYOP. They make use of their exits. Hey all, did we talk about the 33-year-old eagle that died on Skull and Bones Day from climate change? Let's see. That should have been a pop quiz. So it died of climate change. Beloved bald eagle Murphy. Okay, I see. The storms in Missouri killed him. Thanks a lot, Republicans. You know, Murphy the eagle, 33, died of head trauma on 3/22. Now that's even more intriguing here, because 3/22, Skull and Bones Society, the day that the Georgia Guidestones appeared, and that's why we were talking about it. Georgia Guidestones were up for 42 years, and they were blown up on 7/6/2022, and this stood out as significant. 7/6, and they blew up the capstone on it, and from above it looks like a skull and bones. So the capstone being destroyed looked like signifying a shot to a skull or a headshot. So we were making these various connections to it, the significance of the date 7/6, George Bush's 76th birthday, he being Skull and Bonesman, and of course 42 years after it was put up there, 7 times 6. So you have a lot of the numbers kind of connecting to something. Each one of the pillars weighed 42,000 pounds. I mean, we went deep into the weeds on this thing. But I remember at the time suggesting that this is referencing an incoming headshot. And I had a number of reasons to bring this up. And that was 2 days after Robert Crimo shot up the 4th of July parade, if you recall. So now we're talking about a headshot associated with the date 322, Murphy the Eagle. So there's something here to it. But yeah, blaming climate change. And interestingly, right-wingers will blame environmentalists for eagles dying because they say that the wind turbines chop up eagles. So bald eagles are just going through wind turbines. And if they don't get whacked by a wind turbine, the solar panels reflecting the sun cook them in the air. So like these winged cooking like rotisseries just plopping to the earth. And they say that these eagles are just dying in record numbers because of the environmentalists. But now the environmentalists are able to say that no, it's the capitalists who are killing the eagles. Famed California eagle dies during significant winter storm. Murdering, see, look at this one here. Murdering the eagles to save the climate. This is an article from last year. The downside of Wyoming's wind energy boom. So I'm not even exaggerating. 2 articles side by side, a year apart. California eagle dies because of climate change. Murdering eagles to save the climate. Each side can blame the other side for killing the eagles. So here we go. They're talking about wind farms. Says it's pretty crazy. The largest wind farm in the country. I'm trying to find the death toll here. Is it really clean if it kills? They kill eagles, bats, migrating birds, which typically collide with the blades that span 165 feet. Goes on to say, the Golden Eagle Protection Act is supposed to mitigate this, but anyway, they're still letting the eagles die. So eagles are getting murdered by climate change and attempts to mitigate climate change. Tom103 says, hit by space junk. You know, it probably will happen. It probably will happen. Especially since we talked about it. But yeah, eagles getting killed by space junk. They're saying that the airplanes are having to dodge space junk now. Space junk helmets are on the way. They're going to be mandatory. And if you don't wear one, your neighborhood helmet Karen is going to get in your face. Did anybody see this? Elon Musk took a spoon and a fork and a knife and he balanced it. And he's surrounded by adults who are just oohing and awing. And his fan base on X are out there just saying, oh, look, this is our autistic genius, Elon Musk. And they all look like Soy Jack. You know, the meme of the guy pointing behind him with his mouth wide open. Like, they're completely amazed by this. I don't know what to make of it. Is this the emperor's new clothes that we're experiencing here? Is everyone just pretending because they're trying to be a part of this consensus? I don't know. I was underwhelmed. I would be more impressed if he balanced a spoon on the tip of his nose. Isabel Ann says, I wear the helmet to protect you. Yeah, exactly. Well, I was trying to think about how do I get into the space junk business, like the market of space junk, I guess, protection. And helmets wouldn't be enough. They're necessary, but what about when you're sleeping? And I found a story about this city councilwoman in Canada who was asleep in bed when a space rock went through her roof and it hit her pillow right next to her. So if she had someone there, they would have been brained, craniumed. I remember wondering, how is it that people reported this gigantic fireball? The construction workers saw the fireball coming down to Earth. Everyone heard this loud boom, and then it lands on her pillow. So it had the force to go through the roof, to go through the ceiling, and it hits the bed and it doesn't bounce. DEPROGRAM says, I think you're obligated to act impressed around people like that. That's kind of what I get here. That's kind of what I'm gathering. But Elon Musk fans are in their own little bubble universe. But my point here, too, in bringing him up even, and the only reason he's relevant to our discussions, is that this is like Bill Gates to the right. This is a manufactured villain to the left. And the role he's playing right now on the world stage, this is a reality TV show for all intents and purposes, and this specific role is right out of The Madness, which was, again, #1 on Netflix right before Luigi started the class war, which we're experiencing right now. And things are going to heat up. Spring has begun. We're just a couple of months away from, big protest season. And I've seen ads for protesters. If you want to be a peaceful protester, some of them are getting paid like $40 an hour. I would consider joining Antifa for $40 an hour. For research purposes, of course. If you're an IPR reporter and you think you can get in at, go for it. We had someone who went to a mass casualty simulation, saw people walking around with like shrapnel and objects sticking out of their heads. It was like a horror movie festival. If you look at the screen, here you have the astronauts landing after 9 months in space, which I think might have some significance to birth the Gemini twins. There's a lot of symbolism inherent in these events. But again, my first impression when I saw this, my immediate association was Persistence of Time, Salvador Dali. And I juxtaposed the two because this was the image that was promoted. And just looking at this again, I don't think it's that far off. Do I think it's intentional? Yeah, I think it's a statement. I think this is a statement. I think the whole thing is artistry, and it's some kind of illusion that the insiders would get, no different than Mousegate. Because you can take anything. You could take an image like this particular painting, upload it to Grok or something similar, and say, use this same composition, but replace these objects with something with this. You can do swaps. So I think it's the same. Joe Santos says same background. I'm going to look into the painting, look into the nuance and perhaps the dates. Maybe there's some significance here that might even further connect the mission with the meaning of this particular painting. Because if you remember last year, when the Dali cargo ship hit the Francis Scott Key Bridge, all kinds of connections to leave the world behind and other things. But it brings up the idea of the surreal and surrealism. And of course, at the time, we were looking at the bridge to nowhere, another Dali that might mean something. All right, let's continue. I'm starting a list of books. So if you have any books or movies that you think should be required reading and viewing for the IPS think tank, make suggestions. I'll take note and add them to the list. And I'm going to do my best to source these books, whether I have them here or provide Amazon links. So just a heads up, it's a work in progress. I'm completing an IPS book and movie list. Blap says, time to deprogram before sleep. Yes, and if you listen while you sleep, it's technically programming, but you're having the deprogramming programmed into you. It's like subliminal. All right, let's move on. Just scrolling through my Minds feed. If you haven't caught the course or checked out Exit Trutherville, I suggest you do. And another reason why we're doing so is that we have been arriving at some fascinating conclusions and I think a deeper understanding of how the Psi War itself works. And we just want to get everyone up on the same sheet. And if someone thinks that we're fundamentally wrong, now's the time to debate it. Neuromancer by William Gibson says, Neurojack. Yeah, that's a good one. I was just thinking about Mona Lisa Overdrive, the third book in the Sprawl trilogy. So Neuromancer, in my opinion, is the aesthetic basis for the Matrix. And William Gibson, I think he coined the term cyberpunk. And then the second book, Count Zero, has the same characters interacting with spiritual entities that manifest through cyberspace. So it kind of makes this, I guess, analogy between possession and Agent Smith and these computer programs jumping into people in the Matrix. It's kind of a interesting take. And then the third one, Mona Lisa Overdrive, I was thinking of because it begins where the character's walking down on this beach and she's followed by basically an iPhone drone by the description of it. And I saw this advertisement for a drone camera that flies around your house and monitors it 24/7. And when its batteries go low, it charges itself and repeats. But anyway, William Gibson's work, Neuromancer, probably required reading. And I don't think it gets mentioned enough when people talk about the origin of the Matrix. Wilderness of Mirrors, says by David C. Martin, says King Ravana. So Wilderness of Mirrors. I've only heard that expression before. It was in a book on the CIA. And I think that's where the phrase comes from. Intrigue, deceptions, and secrets. Yeah, Cold War stuff. Looks interesting. I like the expression. Okay, let's see what else. Anything else? I have a couple other things because Sun Tzu, The Art of War, really explains the world today and how the Psy-War actually works, where they emphasize defeating the enemy without drawing a weapon. And I would also include Saul Alinsky, Rules for Radicals. But Robert Greene has a series of books like 48 Laws of Power, 33 Laws of War, and these break down a lot of these other books with anecdotes, and I think are extremely informative. Edward Bernays' Propaganda, that has to be included here. I mean, I've had people, rightfully skeptical, saying, how can you say that predictive programming has any effect? What's your basis? It's like, well, advertising, repetition of messaging, marketing tactics, these are all time-tested and highly refined. But if you go back to Edward Bernays, who's a relative, interestingly enough, he's an ancestor to the founder of Netflix and a relative of Sigmund Freud. But even back then, they were talking about the capability of media to manipulate masses as a singular organism. And the influence operations, PR stunts, all started with them, with this concept of public relations. And it's had 100 years plus to develop and refine what really is probably a more ancient art if you look at cult, mind control, and religions. The Room. Yes, The Room is a must-watch. The Village. Okay. I'm looking at my own shelf over here, and I think I have a few I'll add as well. But as I said, I'm going to put a list, and I'll put it in the newsletter. So at the bottom of the newsletter, we'll have this ongoing list. Okay, the same guy who wrote Clockwork Orange, Juste Mio. And I guess this could also include predictive programming laden films in general. We should have a list. And I am making a point to create a wiki page for the movies that connect to the PSYOPs. And my focus is really concurrent programming, because you can't debunk that or hand wave it away the way that some people will minimize predictive programming. They'll say, well, you have a huge body of content to draw from, you're just cherry picking. Well, I'm not cherry picking. If the Netflix version of what's going to happen, or what is happening right now, was released the same day it happened or the day before. For example, Trump kicking off his campaign in Waco, just as Waco American Apocalypse is released. Like, these are examples of the coordination, the timing. And so this is harder to explain away as mere coincidence. And the case that it's somehow the result of a simulation is kind of also taken off the table here, because these instances of predictive programming always have a political agenda associated with the psyop it's connected to. So you couldn't blame the universe or synchronicity for any of these connections unless your contention also includes that the universe is a liberal Democrat with the statist agenda, which I don't believe. Crystallizing public opinions, says Lean Dion. Yeah, and we're talking about, and there's this cliche that conservatives used to spout all the time. I almost hate to say it because they'll say it again, but it's politics is downstream from culture. And that was started by Andrew Breitbart. Politics being downstream from culture, the idea that their political decisions are going to be made in advance if you can influence them through the culture. And this is why you have so many movies that are promoted in the alt-right media ecosystem, like Sound of Freedom, or the more recent one, Homestead. These movies that are targeted to like the QAnon MAGA crowd, yeah, these are all movies designed to get them to vote in a certain way. I think Sound of Freedom was supposed to be out in 2020 or 2019. And I believe, had it come out then, it would have been more relevant, because people still cared about the missing children. But nobody cares anymore. Ask your neighborhood QAnoner about the missing children living in the sewers beneath Los Angeles who are being harvested for their adrenochrome, and they don't care anymore. Trump's in office, they don't care. The Impact of Science on Society by Bertrand Russell. Douglas Adams' Ultimate Guide to the Galaxy is a Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy book. Okay. Douglas Adams, interesting character. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is where you get deep thought, the computer at the center of the universe. The number 42 is the answer to everything, which some associate. There are different explanations for it, because we see the number in other contexts. And in fact, Jeff Bezos has a $42 million clock. And I see the number 42 associated with Chronos, Saturn, time, and associated ideas. But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also includes it, and so Musk uses that as the explanation for his obsession with the number. Some say it's because of the 7-bit ASCII character set. The code 42 pertains to the asterisk, and the asterisk is the wild card. So I think that the number 42 as an answer to everything might have to do with free will or something like that. But yeah, it might be worth reading the book. I don't recommend the movie. I found it to be cringe. Okay, let's see what else here. Oh, by the way, on the archives, I am doing transcripts, and then I'm using Perplexity to break down the transcript and take out pull quotes and bullet points with all of the links. And so I can just give it instructions, like extract from the transcript any book titles and put them in an alphabetized list, like that kind of thing. It's very useful. And you'll find if you're subscribed to the newsletter and you get the archives that these are going to be, it's going to be easier to get the links to anything we talk about. Saves me a lot of work. I don't have to go copying and pasting and hunting down links. I can just outsource it to the bots. Okay, let's move on. I think the whole thing about dirt beneath, or about the pyramids, by the way. So pyramids in Giza, a lot of stories are going on about how they've discovered these vast underground cities below. Scientists who discovered vast city underneath Egypt's Giza pyramid reveal new secrets. They're using radar technology to find a vast city beneath the pyramids. This story is going extremely viral, but I happen to think it's probably nothing but clickbait and a hoax. So you heard it here first. I might be wrong, but I doubt it. I'm pretty sure this is nothing but clickbait, and I'm just bringing this up because I hardly feel like looking into it, because it's one of these things where it's being hyped up. It's a bunch of catchy headlines, but in about 2 or 3 days, we'll find out why it's bogus. So I'm going to wait for the hype to settle before I look into it. XG says, here's a book and a movie, Scanner Darkly by Philip K. Dick. He's an interesting one as well. And we talk about metascriptors and mostly movie directors, but we need to start looking into a lot of these writers. And what's interesting about Philip K. Dick is his life story and his claim that some woman showed up at his door and she had some necklace with the fish symbol, and that a beam of pink light beamed out of this thing into his third eye and gave him all kinds of information. And he writes all these science fiction books, and many of his books become the basis for things like Blade Runner and probably, like, I think RoboCop. There's probably like a half a dozen we could name here that came out of the minds, the works, the short stories of Philip K. Dick. But anyway, he claimed that he was getting messages from the Dog Star from Sirius, which kind of sounds like Robert Anton Wilson, who made some of the same claims. But the association of Sirius and the Dog Star makes me wonder, okay, this could just be a metaphor. Maybe it alludes to something else, like he's connected to the secret society systems or something. Outer Range on Amazon Prime is about Kronos, Saturn, and Mithraism, says Nero Jack. You know, there's a series I was trying to watch called, I think it's called The Dark, about this portal, time travel in 33-year increments. Intriguing. But okay, the Saturn Kronos stuff, like 1899, connects to the movie The Dark, the series. And, you know, it's big on that kind of symbolism. A YouTuber called Static in the Attic did an interesting video about the recent pyramid nonsense going on. Well, what's the point? Is it because the JFK nothing burgers were going to be too upsetting? It's like, oh, look, they're distracted. Well, actually, it goes before that, because you have the Jeffrey Epstein files. So everybody's waiting for the Jeffrey Epstein files. All the big clickbaiters are spamming about, hey, look, we're going to find out about Jeffrey Epstein. Nothing burgers. Trump just promised nothing. They put the old files in a new folder, got their clicks, and moved on. So then the next day, it's like, oh, the JFK files are coming out. Same thing. Nothing happened. No new information. Now it's, oh, by the way, there's a city beneath the pyramids. And I'm of the opinion that in less than a week, this is going to be replaced by something else. And it brings up a lot of the mud flood stuff. I think it's intriguing, it's interesting, but again, Snopes says there's no credible evidence for the pyramid hoax going around. Now, let me just point this out, because the facts are facts no matter who is speaking them or presenting them. And Snopes might just be a mainstream media enforcer and their anti-conspiracy theory. But their reasoning is often sound, if based on certain fallacies. But when they do a debunk based on the facts, you can generally trust it, because they do apply the lens of skepticism. The problem isn't a lack of skepticism, it's the fact that it's selective. I mean, the left is skeptical of the right and vice versa, but neither are skeptical of their own side and the other side, which is where we are here. So Snopes is probably right. You can check Snopes, and they're generally correct. Joe Santos says it's like as above, so below. Drones in the sky, now steps under the pyramids. Right. And what happened to the drones? We had a global drone invasion, and then that's gone. Then California got nuked, and then that's gone. Epstein files, JFK files, stuff under the pyramids. Oh, then that's right, Billy Corgan, reptilians. Okay, somebody's putting other suggestions. I'll take note of all of these. So we started off talking about Candace Owens because she's discussing the WHO running drills for a cyber pandemic, which they say is inevitable. And I think of her as a provocateur, but who's also something of an insider when it comes to these narratives. I mean, this is why you have Laura Loomer selling radiation poisoning first aid kits. Preparing for the next global crisis, a cyber pandemic. And my contention is that they're going to shut it all down. They're going to shut down the internet because there has to be maybe a new standard of censorship because of hate speech, and possibly the hate speech leading to right-wingers getting their hands on nukes and doing real damage. And they use all the movies to create the scenario in the minds of the public. That's one of the reasons for predictive programming. It's because they want to put things into your frame of reference. And we often see examples of this where people will compare the latest PSYOP to the big movie that it relates to. And this has been a consistent pattern. And as we've been paying attention to it and reporting on it consistently, even the news media, once in a while, has to acknowledge its own prescience and downplay it. So here's an example. You know, if you want to get a few million views, you put a video up like this. This guy, his name is Stargate Voyager, says, "What if I told you that beneath the pyramids are 8 gigantic cylindrical structures 2,000 feet deep into the earth that connect to colossal squared chambers?" So a lot of people are now suddenly experts on archaeology.
Army using chisels, hammers, sleds, and ropes. Does this look more like a tomb to you or an ancient energy plant? Now, if this alleged...
So we're back to ancient Egyptian miracles and reptilians, and I'm not even convinced that the pyramids are thousands of years old. I think they could have been built in 1776. Like, I think that these things are backdated and given a false history, and this would be very much on brand with the powers that be. I mean, the symbolism of the groups, like the Freemasons, they're called Freemasons because they base their allegorical stories on building temples. So it's like the stonework and the secrecy as far as the techniques for building these intricate cathedrals. So normies look at it kind of like mud flooders, and they can't believe, how were these things made? Ancient technology. Antiquitech. We couldn't build these structures today. Well, the techniques behind these things were carefully guarded secrets by the stonemasons guilds. And so the techniques and stuff were trade secrets. And my point being, it wouldn't shock me if the pyramids were one of their big secrets, and the Masons are all about pyramids. So it wouldn't shock me if it was all some kind of ruse and they had some technique. And so it's not an ancient secret because ancient aliens built these things, but no. It's a secret by the security clearance societies that run this place. And part of the secret is not only how it was built, but how it allows them to artificially establish a timeline based on these things' creations. I mean, that's how these things work. Narrative control. Allows them to establish an arbitrary starting point. Let's see. Talmud says Napoleon plus army plus engineers. Well, it's often represented as some great mystery. And I kind of doubt that these things are even that much of a mystery. Ye put out an album. He's wearing a swastika chain. I listened to it. And, I think it was typical of Ye. I'm not really a listener, so I can't really opine as to whether it was bad or good. But I look at him, he's intriguing to me in the sense that I don't think he's an insider. I really don't. I think that Ye is in a Truman Show of his own. I think he's entirely gatekept and handled. Like, I think that the Kardashian, Kim Kardashian, yeah, total blood-drinking Illuminati insider, probably shape-shifting reptilian, and she knows what's beneath the pyramids, but Ye knows nothing. And they control him with like bad drugs, like helium. Like, I don't think he has a clue about how fake things are. And so he's kind of a loose cannon in a way, but they seem to have him under control. And he might even be incredibly blackmailed. Who knows? I mean, he was really doing his best to get Diddy out. All right, moving on. So some of the released JFK files have people talking. A lot of people are using the phrase dummy or clone, and it does look pretty shoddy. Others are using it to say that Israel did it. The same clueless people who say Israel did 9/11. No, that's very myopic, and it's a red herring. Stanley Kubrick directed 9/11. Alfred says, the narratives are part of conditioning the population into a state of dependency and learned helplessness. True. And the flood of news that is just so voluminous that you couldn't possibly keep up with all of it requires that you outsource your intel gathering to other people and organizations. And this is where they're creating a gap between what we think we know and the truth. And we are being increasingly distanced from the truth as we are increasingly dependent for our worldview on those who are able to make sense of it, condense it, provide a nice picture for us. And there's never going to be a unification between left and right. There's never going to be agreement. In fact, you should try to avoid points of agreement with any of these big events. Like, it should be worrying when somebody finds themselves agreeing on the premise with the other side, but disagreeing on who's to blame. Look at this here. This is Owen Schroyer from InfoWars being swatted. Now, one of the InfoWars reporters was just killed, and Alex Jones says it was George Soros. Now, when Alex Jones says George Soros, that's just a euphemism for Israel, because they've repackaged a lot of old conspiracy theories and they try to make it more mainstreamable. And that's why the Nazis hate Jones, because he won't say what they want him to say. He'll say George Soros as a euphemism. But anyway, here's Owen Schroyer, performative swatting, pretending. This isn't how swatting really happens. This is totally fake. The fact that you have it on camera doesn't make it real. And I don't think anybody cares. Nobody cares that somebody went to Nick Fuentes' house with a crossbow. He tried to call it an attempted assassination. No. Couldn't outdo Trump's psyop. If I was trying to make a psyop, I would have the crossbow arrow like graze my ear or something. But swatting is so fake. Nobody got swatted. Tim Pool never got swatted. Marjorie Taylor Greene never got swatted. These are just a bunch of cosplayers. All right, let's see. Anomaly says, NASA astronauts land back on Earth. This looks like Timu. It really does. And
And splashdown. Crew 9 back on Earth.
I have to say, this is the most CGI looking landing ever, and it shouldn't be. Of all the things that they could really do, you could put a capsule on a helicopter and drop it with some parachutes and catch it on camera, but why does this look so fake? It really does look fake. And this again makes me think that they intentionally created the Salvador Dali persistence of time piece out of this. Why does it look so fake? It's not just my bias. It objectively looks fake. And Elon Musk agreed with us with the Polaris thing. He said, yeah, these photos from space look fake, but they're not, is what he added. Yeah, he said, but they're not, but he agrees that they look fake. And that's a big win. Like even here, Crew 10 Dragon vehicle arriving. And look, these aren't even flat earthers. People who don't give a damn about the shape of the earth are looking at the stuff and they're just saying, we're supposed to believe this is real. I'm just scrolling through Normie's comments here. If those lights were blue and red, I think the ISS would be getting... No, these are all, again, this is the fakest thing I've seen all year. Pathetic CGI. This is 100% garbage. You know it. The CGI is horrendous. You're not convincing anyone unless they were already duped to begin with. How do people look at this, says Feltron, the mastermind, and not think it's CGI? Exactly. Exactly. This is our 2 + 2 = 5 scenario. You know, in 1984, Winston is broken when he finally realizes that his own perceptions will get him in trouble. He's just going to have to go along with what he's told. Ignore what his eyes see. How many fingers am I holding up? The guy holds up 4, but the answer is 5. He says 5. And in this case, this is clearly fake. It's objectively fake. Even if it's real, it looks fake as hell. If I believed this was real, I'd say, wow, it looks fake, but I know it's real. I know in my heart it's real. But my eyes tell me it's fake. And if you're honest with yourself, you're going to say this looks fake, even though you believe it's real. You cannot be truthful with us and say, yeah, this looks real to my eyes. Like, no, what is your background? What skill sets do you have? What is your experience with video editing that gives you the insight to say that even the qualifications to say this doesn't look fake as hell? And where else do you find it to be the case that some things, I don't know, I mean, what I'm saying is like, just because you're 100 miles above the surface of the earth doesn't mean everything should suddenly start looking like a computer graphic. Like, this is just pathetic. Mortal L says, I guess it doesn't matter to them that people know it's fake. They still proceed as usual. Well, they shut off the comments on live stream ISS feeds because of people like us. You know, we'd be going on a live stream and I'd post a link. Hey, go tell them it's fake. And they know that the skeptics are outnumbered. The skeptics are outnumbered and we're drowned out. We don't matter in their ecosystem. So if you're in their closed system, mainstream alternative media, and you know it's fake, your opinions don't matter. And from our perspective, from the off-world stage perspective, if you're on the stage, your opinions don't actually matter to us. In your opinion, it looks real, but as far as you know, you have no direct knowledge. You're accepting it on faith. We can agree to disagree because now we have our own sandbox. You know, we're not trying to share the same air as these individuals, as the multitudes. And this helps us preserve the integrity of our research. You know, we're not having to give them the benefit of the doubt because they have the consensus on their side. 5G Trevor says, human pilots have a hard time linking up jets to the flying tankers in calm conditions. That would not go smooth if real. Yeah, I think one of the things that I would argue works against the ISS is how perfect it is when you look at the footage. No rocking, no rolling. It's always perfect. Jamarian says, Timmy, here's where you and I disagree. They have to disclose the pyramid because that's a huge part of the upcoming agenda that's going to transpire globally. I was open to that kind of thing back with like 2012. I was like, okay, maybe 2012, pyramids, Mayan calendar, something's going to happen. And then 2020. And now I'm thinking here that end time scenarios, global awakenings, these are all hoaxes. That the status quo is going to remain as it is. Things are going to change incrementally, no rapid changes. Maybe once a generation you have a big psyop like 9/11, COVID thing. But I think the COVID thing is not over yet. I think that was setting the stage. And I said this before with regard to this disease X, that they used the pandemic to train us on a certain model. And the model is the one in which it's the quarantine thing, that one nonconformist threatens entire systems. And they've made the point. They said the richest man in the world, an individual, is now like billionaires, can now threaten entire systems. The ecosystem, low Earth orbit, and cyberspace. So I kind of think that what 2020 did is it taught us that one person can shut the whole world down. And now they can make the same parallel argument for information and therefore thought crimes and mind viruses. And nobody has done more to popularize and advertise the concept of a mind virus than Elon Musk, who's the one who's going to be blamed for the necessity of shutting down the internet because of the incoming, inevitable cyber pandemic. Joe Santos says Bryce. It looks like Bryce. I agree. You know, Bryce is I worked with it a little bit. It's a 3D modeling program. And one of the things I want to do is I want to get 5 or 6 video editing specialists or majors at the university. And as a simple study, provide them isolated video clips. Watch this clip. I mean, maybe it has to be like a full study, their eyes propped open like Clockwork Orange. But make them watch like 10 clips. And every other clip would be NASA. So Netflix, NASA, Netflix, NASA, Netflix, NASA. And you don't tell them which. And we grab from various periods of time, 80s, 90s, and then a range of clips from the ISS. And then we ask them, in your professional opinion as a video editor, tell us when you see special effects and when you see something real. And the ruse here is that we're only showing them movie stuff and NASA stuff. And then we'll see if they're able to, if they will arrive at the conclusion that any of it's real. But if you tell them it's NASA, their programming kicks in and overrides what they see. Mazel says, BTV folks are shills. Are they still in love with Trump? I don't even know anymore. I think people stop paying attention. That's why the clickbait's getting so outrageous. Like we're talking about pyramids and reptilians. It just struck me as odd. All right, well, we're going to continue this conversation tomorrow. We're back on a regular schedule. We'll be earlier and earlier each night. I'm actually just kind of surprised I got through with the project, but I felt like it needed to be done. Not that I'm pessimistic or expect anything bad to happen, but if there is a cyber pandemic and they cut everything off, we lose everything. So I thought, let's just consolidate everything into one crash course. So people who debate or dispute or disagree with anything that I'm saying, this is my basis for saying so. And it's open for debate. Exit Trutherville, a crash course in auto-hoaxology. If you're subscribed to the newsletter and a member, it'll be released to you at midnight. If you're a Blue Wrench Lodge member, just check the latest video. It should have been released. I think I had it scheduled. So thanks again, Ted Stryker, for handing out the wrenches. And the course includes Auto Hoaxology 101 and the World Stage Deprogramming Guide. They contain all the essential ideas and concepts. So I feel like right now, the IPS could now survive a digital nuke, a cyber pandemic. Tomorrow will be much earlier as well, so just a heads up. get on the newsletter, ips.monster. Thanks for all of your comments. Very, very busy chat. Hard keeping up. And we'll have more updates soon. So this is Chief Crow and the Flat Earthworms, Auto Hoax or GTFO. And links for all of the tracks will be provided in the show notes.